company is founded on or framed around uplifting women and women's well-being. And she doesn't need the money. I don't know why she felt she needed to throw gas on the fire and get involved in all of this. And I think, I don't want to let Ryan Reynolds off the hook either. He produced the ad, he created it, and his wife has just gone through something really similar over the last year. And I find it really kind of astounding that he thought this was a great way to lead.
Someone who builds a public image around empowering women and supporting their well-being usually doesn't need extra money, attention, or controversy to stay relevant, which is why it feels confusing that she chose to involve herself in something that was already highly sensitive and under massive public scrutiny. And when you really look at the situation, it becomes even more surprising because this wasn't just a random decision happening in isolation. It connects to a much bigger pattern involving Ryan Reynolds, who wasn't just casually linked to the situation, but was actually the one who created and produced the ad that added fuel to an already intense situation. And what makes this harder to ignore is the fact that his own wife has been dealing with significant public backlash and negative press over the past year, meaning he has first-hand experience with how damaging public narratives and media storms can be. So naturally, you would expect a higher level of awareness, empathy, or even caution before stepping into something similar involving other people. But instead, the decision feels calculated in a way that prioritizes attention over sensitivity. And that's where a lot of the criticism begins to build. At the same time, while all of this is unfolding, Ryan appears to be actively working to reshape how the public sees him, especially in his role as a husband, by sharing a series of highly polished and carefully curated photos showing moments with his wife in Wales, where they are seen visiting an owl sanctuary, enjoying tea, going out for dinner, and posing in what look like perfectly composed, almost cinematic shots that don't feel spontaneous at all. Instead, they come across as something planned, staged, and intentionally crafted to send a message, especially considering the timing of these posts, which comes right after months of criticism suggesting that he may not have been as publicly supportive during key moments related to his wife's legal issues. So this sudden display of affection and togetherness feels less like a natural glimpse into their lives and more like a strategic move to shift the narrative and remind people of a different image. What makes it even more interesting is that these moments may not be as personal as they appear, because there are strong indications that cameras and production crews were present during this trip, suggesting that it could be connected to ongoing filming for their football club's reality series, meaning the entire visit might serve a dual purpose, both personal branding and business content. And when you start to look at it that way, it reinforces the idea that in their world, the line between real life and constructed storytelling is extremely thin, where even genuine moments can be shaped, edited, and presented in a way that fits a specific narrative. And over time, this kind of approach makes it harder for audiences to distinguish what is authentic and what is part of a larger strategy. Then comes the situation with the viral kiss cam incident, which quickly became one of the most talked about moments online, involving a tech company CEO and an HR executive who were seen together in a way that led the public to assume infidelity, even though it later came out that both individuals were reportedly separated and going through their own personal situations. But before the full context could settle in, the internet had already turned it into a massive scandal. And instead of letting things calm down, Ryan saw an opportunity and moved incredibly fast to capitalize on the attention, developing an ad concept within hours, bringing in Gwyneth Paltrow, and completing the production in a very short time frame. All while, according to his own statements, not having prior approval or even informing the company involved before creating the final product. He later described this as a bold and creative risk, explaining that he invested his own time and resources because he believed it would ultimately benefit the company and generate positive attention, framing it as a smart marketing move that focuses on speed, instinct, and confidence. But that explanation doesn't fully address the ethical concerns that come with using a real-life situation involving real people who were already under intense public scrutiny, especially when those individuals did not consent to being part of a marketing narrative. And that's where the situation becomes complicated, because Gwyneth reportedly agreed to participate under the impression that the company had approved the idea, while others connected to the company have stated that no such approval was given, creating a clear contradiction that raises serious questions about what information was shared and how the entire project was presented behind the scenes. The ad itself was designed in a way that didn't directly mention the controversy but clearly relied on the attention surrounding it, using subtle references to acknowledge what people were already talking about while redirecting focus toward the company's product, which from a marketing perspective might seem clever and effective, but from a human perspective, it adds another layer of pressure to individuals who were already dealing with a wave of public judgment, and notably, the woman involved in the original incident appeared to face a disproportionate amount of backlash compared to her male counterpart, which only intensified after the situation was turned into content for entertainment and promotion. Looking at the bigger picture, this doesn't feel like an isolated incident, but rather part of a broader pattern where fast-moving, attention-driven marketing decisions are made without fully considering their impact. And while this approach can generate short-term buzz and visibility, it also carries long-term risks, especially when it affects real people in negative ways. And over time, these decisions start to shape public perception, not just of the campaigns themselves, but of the person behind them, leading to growing criticism and skepticism about intentions and values. Ultimately, the biggest issue that emerges from all of this is credibility, because when different versions of events start to conflict, whether it's what was said in interviews versus what others claim actually happened, it creates doubt. And once that doubt exists, every action, every post, and every statement is viewed more critically, making it much harder to control the narrative in the future. And that's exactly where things stand now, with more people beginning to question not just individual decisions, but the overall approach and mindset driving them.